Morena koutou, good morning councillors, and welcome to the Community and District Development Committee meeting for the 11th of June. Just a few reminders, the meeting is being live streamed. We have Mayor Tapsell joining us by Zoom, and should Councillor Kiriopa as well. Just a reminder, put your mobile phones off, and that just reminds me, mine is still on. And we'll try and take a morning break at about 11 o'clock. We do have quite a busy day today. We've got a council meeting that will start once this meeting finishes. We also have hearings for the local orders done well. So in the interests of trying to get through all of the work today, try and keep the questions brief and the answers succinct as well. And we would get underway now with the karakia from Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Morena. Tūtawa mai e rongo. Tūtawa mai e raro. Tūtawa mai e roto. Tūtawa mai e wā. Kia taai. Te Māori tū. Te Māori ora. Ki te katoa. Hui e taai.
Tēnā koe Councillor O'Brien for the karakia. So I have apologies from Mayor Tapsell for lateness. I have an apology from Councillor Kiriopa, who will be an early departure. Are there any other apologies? If not, can I have a mover for thank you, Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Wang. All those in favour, please say aye. Yes, thank you, that is carried. Declarations of interest. Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown.
Madam Chair, the discussion around liquor licensing. That's
the next meeting.
Next one.
So
okay,
I'll take that at that meeting. Thanks, Councillor Brown. I don't have any urgent items. I haven't been advised of any minor matters, so I'm moving on now to confirmation of the minutes. That's page 6 of the agenda. Minutes of the Community and District Development Committee held on the 14th of May. It's only the correctness of those minutes. Thank you, Councillor Waru. Thank you, Councillor Waru as the mover. Thank you, Councillor Barker. If there are no corrections or amendments to that, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, that is carried. Just one item we have is in relation to the matter that's coming up later on in the agenda. Wrong page apparently, sorry. So we will deal with that in confidential. The reason for the update being in confidential and not being on the agenda is because the update has been brought to the attention of the staff after this agenda was published. The matter can't wait until the next meeting. There'll be no decision making on the matter, and it's just a verbal update in public excluded due to an obligation of confidence and the need to avoid any damage to the public interest. So we will deal with that in confidential. So just to deal with that issue of the homelessness, the verbal update on the homelessness in the CBD be received at this meeting in public excluded. Could I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Barker and Councillor Brown. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, thank you, that is carried. Moving now to page 15, that's the Rotorua Stadium. I have a mover and a seconder to receive the stadium report. Thank you, Councillor Wang and Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, thank you, that is carried. Morning, Rob and Alex. There is a PowerPoint that has been dropped into Stella, if you want to bring that up. It's easier for you to see there.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. Rob will walk you through the presentation and the report in a little bit more detail, but just as a brief introduction, really the report outlines how the stadium utilisation is tracking since the direction was provided around it being used as a community sporting venue based off the SGV report in 2023 and then further to the LTP workshops in 2024. Now that we have a 12-month baseline to compare against, we believe there is further analysis required to define what optimal community sporting use actually means in relation to the stadium. You can really see through the utilisation figures that there's a lot of room for improvement there. We have proposed 7 options to analyse in more detail, with any additional options proposed by this committee as well. So with that, I'll hand over to Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And through you, Madam Chair, I've got about 10 slides which we'll go through to basically give you some information, understand that utilisation and cost picture, some of the other cost implications, and then rolling through to the options. So, first image there, hopefully this is reasonably familiar to you. The stadium facility as itself consists of 2 fields, an embankment, and a very large building around the number 1 field. So we've got this area on the side is the number 2 field, which is a soil field. That's within the stadium fence. It's got field training lights on it and is a heavily utilised field, as you'll see later on. We've got the main number 1 field here, the terraces on the northern side, and obviously the stadium grandstand and ancillary buildings on the southern side. There's a number of other toilet blocks, scoreboards, media towers, and variety of facilities there. There's the grandstand is in that image there. It seats 5,500 people. It's got 6 changing rooms underneath it, numbers of offices. It's got referees' rooms and all sorts of things. That image there, which you'll see on your Stella, is the back of the building, showing it's actually quite a large building with a lot of facilities within it. The stadium itself is recognised in the Bay of Plenty Spaces and Places strategy as an international venue capable of hosting games between nations. There's not many considered international venues in the Bay of Plenty. Bay Oval is another one. Interestingly, we've got 2 others in our area, which is the BMX track, which we all know is hosted an international event, and the Whakarewarewa Forest. So this is what is one of the 4 classed international venues, venues with international capability in the Bay of Plenty region. The review that was done on our venues by SGV, which was presented to Council in 2023, and what Alex has already touched on, defined that it was a venue that had more opportunity for community sport with occasional large event use, and through the LTP workshops that happened prior to the setting of the LTP, that was reinforced. So we've been working on that premise for the last 18 months of operation since then. The objectives for the stadium that we've sort of set from all that, from the strategy, the Spaces and Places work, knowing that it has got some larger event opportunity, and the signals from Council is that it's been targeted to facilitate community sport, support high performance training, and attract tournaments and entertainment events where economic benefits outweigh the cost of delivery. So those are the 3 sort of key things that we've been working forward with. So a key point in a very quick slide is that the Rotorua Stadium is rather unique when it comes to stadia in New Zealand, in that it is part of a collective of a very large set of fields. Once we get Titoki Place fields online, it will actually be part of a 10-field area. And when we sort of look at the Bay of Plenty, Bay Oval is got 5 sort of fields around it, as well as the Oval itself. Bay Park's only got 1 extra field. FMG Stadium in Hamilton's only got 4 extra fields around it. So this is a bit of a unique point about the Rotorua Stadium, is that it has a lot of grass immediately associated with the area around it. When it comes to utilisation types that occur at the stadium, we do have community sport. The majority of this happens on field number 2. Athletics, bottom right-hand corner of the slide, and a considerable amount of winter sport team training happens during the day and into the night under the new lights that we've got there. Tournaments, that large lower left image, which is actually the stadium sort of in the right smack in the centre of the screen. You can see that the stadium number 1 field, number 2 field is completely surrounded by tents. The Westbrook fields and the Westbrook car park is fully occupied. There are teams, the light's not very good, sorry, but there are teams playing on the Rayboard field down below it, and Westbrook number 3, which is in the bottom corner of that image. The stadium also hosts NPC rugby, so it's a ground for the Bay of Plenty Steamers. They tend to come to Rotorua with their night games because we have the full lighting facility up to Sky Sports standards at the Rotorua Stadium. So when NPC, Bay of Plenty, when the Steamers have a night game, they tend to host it in Rotorua. It can be up to 3 games a year. I think this coming season we've only got 1 game scheduled. We have a gym in the stadium as well, top left of the image. So there was a room in there called the Lion's Den, which in probably about 2018, 2019, a partnership with Bay of Plenty Rugby Union was established to create a gym facility in there to keep Rotorua players, to give Rotorua rugby players who were developing into the NPC grades the opportunity to train locally and not have to move out of town. So that was a piece of work done between the council at the time and the Bay of Plenty Rugby Union to try and keep developing sports athletes in Rotorua. Also upstairs in the main part of the building there's a number of lounges which are used generally in the big game sort of situations, corporate lounges. They are also hired out for training and occasional commercial business use. That graph there shows the utilisation by space for the 24-25 season. You can see field number 2 in the 200 plus days a year that is used. There is a cricket training space within the stadium in one of the warm-up rooms, which is a big, long, skinny room, ideally suited for firing a cricket ball from a machine down to an unsuspecting batter at the other end. But that's a warm-up space that very rarely used to get used, so there's a cricket batting training facility in that. You'll see also the main stadium and the field number 1 bookings. There's around, I think, currently last year, there were around 30 days a year where the whole facility was booked out. Everything was booked, all the lounges, all the fields, everything associated with the building. Additional hires for the lounges, not many. Gym getting up towards 40, 50 days. And there are a couple of club rooms in the stadium as well for a referees club and the Wasps, which is a Bay of Plenty Steamers associated club. Generally, they only get used when there is a major game on. They also get hired out for other users when required. If there's a big tournament and there's particular spaces required for certain things, those facilities can be hired out as well. When it comes to the financial performance, and this is detailed more in the report, it's a little bit difficult to pull the stadium out as its own separate series of revenues and costs, because the stadium cost centre is combined with our sports development, which looks at costs and revenue from all our sports fields. So when we have tournaments that happen at the stadium and also spread onto other fields, that revenue is packaged together and costs associated with that is packaged. So the costs are quite difficult to extract specifically. When we move forward in the options piece of work, we will actually get some financial assistance to start interrogating that further to be able to determine just exactly what the costs are and the revenues associated with the facility. There's also some green space costs that are incorporated into the whole parks area as well, some of the very standard things like sports field mowing, which doesn't involve specialised machinery. For example, the number 2 field, that gets sort of put in all the parks costs. So there's going to need to be a bit of work done there. Basically, I suppose the key message from the cost piece of work is that a significant amount of the costs associated with the stadium are related to depreciation, just of the building itself, of that area, and that what we are seeing in that cost centre is that the 24-25 position is better than 23-24. We are actually hosting more events, we are making more revenue, we have trimmed some costs from that whole sport development and stadium cost centre, so we've actually made a positive move forward in terms of the cost of that stadium provision to the ratepayer with increased utilisation and some cost reduction. Looking at a key part of those costs that we know have been interest has been expressed in, obviously looking after the fields. The number one field is a sand carpet field, which is considered to be one of the better quality fields actually in the North Island. We've had very positive feedback from touring teams about the quality of the Rotorua Stadium field. It was renewed about 4 years ago. We have also just recently redone the irrigation within the field. So they do require, obviously, regular maintenance. The number two field is maintained similarly to any sports field in Rotorua. So whether it's inside the fence, the number two, or outside at Westbrook, it's a similar level. But the number one field does get a higher level of maintenance on it. Also things like the embankments, you know, they are more difficult to mow because of slopes and things like that. So there's we need to get contractors in to help with slope mowing and things like that. As we now have the Works Department more integrated into Council, we will be able to actually establish those costs far better with the new information solutions that we're working with ex-Infracore, our Works Department, to understand time and resources and materials going into that particular area. The estimation from the Works Department is that the whole sort of area costs about $250,000 to look after a year in terms of mowing, fertilising, all those extra bits and pieces that we do in there on both fields. We also have some capital costs associated with it. We've got national quality field lighting that we need to look after. The building itself is reasonably old and it has some future maintenance need. We know probably one of the biggest things that is required for the building is the roof. So the roof, as people who've used the lounges will understand that there are leaks and that needs a piece of work in the future. That will all be far better understood with the facilities team going through their condition reviews that they're doing for all council facilities, and we will have much better information on that later in the year. When we look at how the facility is doing against the objectives, with the first one around facilitating community sport, as I've mentioned, the field number two is probably our most heavily used field in all of Rotorua for training, winter training and summer athletics. The field number one is relatively lightly used. There is a cost barrier to regular use by clubs. The way that the costs are set for the stadium is on the facilities model that Rotorua Lakes Council had previously had for all its venues, where the cost of hiring the facility is determined off what the market rate would be for hiring a similar facility in the country. So to hire the Rotorua Stadium is relative to hiring something like FMG Stadium. We know has bigger and more facilities, but it's relative to the cost of a stadia, and then what happens with community and what's called investment use. Is there a discount applied to that? So there's a 40% discount applied for community use of these major facilities, and there's also a 40% discount applied to use where there is a significant number of people coming into town that will create an economic return for the city. So the number one field gets used for tournaments and the occasional local derby type of use, but really it doesn't get used significantly by clubs and codes across the city. There would also need to be some work if we were going to open that up more to understand what level of use it could cope with without potentially taking it away from major event use. because obviously the more use it gets, the more maintenance you need on it, the more wear and tear it gets on it. Do we still have a field that is suitable for televised games? And the hire of the building also gets used. Certain areas like the warm-up area for cricket gets very heavily used, but there are opportunities certainly with lounges and other areas like that for increasing community use. With that next objective, supporting high performance training, the gym is run with the Bay of Plenty Rugby Union partnership. We have had, I suppose, periods of reasonably high use with that gym when Bay of Plenty Rugby Union were active and also making offers to boys high first 15s and things like that. Also elite sports. Some of the sports I know, like kayaking and things like that, have access to the gym at times, but that is generally run through the partnership with Bay of Plenty Rugby Union rather than us doing it ourselves. So there are opportunities to increase the use of the gym and for high performance training. And we also know that some of the athletics facilities, while they're reasonably rudimentary, they do get used for high performance training as well. I've forgotten Lisa Adams. Lisa Adams uses our facility, our nets and areas and things like that. So there are options to have specific access for high performance athletes. The third one is attracting large tournaments and events, and our main tournaments this last financial year compared to the year before, we've increased by about 25%. They're generally based on Winter Rugby League and Summer Touch, other very large tournaments that we host. They can bring significant visitation to the city. We know event economics work done back in 2020 on the New Zealand Touch Nationals showed that event brought about $1 million of visitor spend into the city. We're currently hosting tournaments that would sum up to about 4 times the size of that. There is more room for increasing tournaments across that whole space. However, there is a limit as well, because the more tournaments that we host there, the more impact it has on surrounding community sport. We know that with our touch tournaments and summer cricket, they can conflict, and fortunately a lot of the tournaments are held over long weekends, and a lot of community sport is put on hold for long weekends. So it doesn't happen that often, but if we were to increase the amount of tournaments, events that spread across all the surrounding fields, we would potentially have some issues with community sport. And the last one there is large commercial events, which I suppose our 2 post-COVID. On the right-hand side, you'll see images taken from 660. So we hosted 660 in November 22, 19,000 ticket sales. The estimated economic benefit to the city was $3.9 million of hosting an event like that. The NRL All-Stars, which is the left-hand side of the image, 17,200 tickets. In February 23, that generated about $2.9 million. Interestingly, a difference between 660 and the NRL in terms of revenue generation for the city, based around when we can get these events. The NRL event turned up at a weekend that was an incredibly busy weekend in Rotorua. So, the inn was full. And so people being able to stay, book out all the hotels and places like that, it generated less compared to the 660, which saw a larger activation in town. And that's a key part of these large events, is that Rotorua NZ as our key, I suppose, RTO, and understanding that whole picture around what is good for the city. These major events, we work very closely with Rotorua NZ, and in fact now that the events section has gone through to Rotorua NZ, that will allow even stronger and further development, I think, of major events in this space. So they Rotorua NZ have also, as you'll know, hopefully secured the Manu Samoa versus Fiji game. So we've got an international rugby test to be hosted at the stadium on 6th of September. Just talking to them yesterday, the ticket sales are in line with the expectations. We're targeting a crowd of around 22,000, which was the same as what was targeted for the NRL All-Stars, and they're feeling pretty confident about that. Large events generally can be quite high cost, they can be reasonably high risk, and they can be high return as well, and that's why they require some expertise in making sure that we bid and go into these events with our eyes wide open, and that's where Rotorua NZ will be helping us from this point forward. So, moving on to the final slide, we've highlighted utilisation across the range of areas and use types. We've got a range of options in the paper before you that could even further optimise utilisation for community sport. So we're seeking feedback and direction from the Council on which options we can go into a further piece of work to analyse. We do need to understand more and explain that with some of the costs and the revenue. So, and part of this will also develop key performance indicators that we can come back for future reporting. The intention for us is to take a range of options from this meeting, look at developing them further, also combining it with a facility strategy so we understand what the condition of the facility is and what is required for it, and coming back to the new council with an analysis of that later this year or around December, and then progress from there. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. So take questions on this and then we'll come back to this potential slide So, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the Chair. Thank you very much, Rob and Alex. Could I just ask very briefly, Rob, sorry, slightly outside the box, the velodrome, what's the status of that? Is it used at all, or is it?
Very infrequently used. There was a lease with Rotorua Cycling. That lease expired. There has been an expression of interest from Rotorua Cycling to potentially start that lease up again, but our understanding is it has been very lightly used maybe over the last 5 years. There is some interest in pushing that up.
Thank you. Is there any alternative use that we could use that particular place for if it's not being utilised, what we actually built it for or invested for, if it's not being used anymore?
It was built by the club and then passed off to council. So as it is, I don't think there's much alternative. But there's obviously a space there that's being occupied by it. So for it to be used for something else would probably require some capital investment to then make the space suitable for whatever else.
Okay, right, thank you. Could I ask about the roof? You've put in there about $5 million. How specific? Is that just a ballpark figure at this stage? Is there any investigation at all?
That is a very ballpark. Part of the work that the facility is on condition assessment. We'll be assessing that, I think in the next few months, so we'll have a much better idea after that piece of work.
Thank you. So at the moment, we don't have any real idea of what status the roof's in, despite it leaking?
We know there are problems up there, but the facilities work will pinpoint that and come back with a far better understanding of what is actually required.
Okay, all right. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit surprised we're not further ahead with where that is, but that's okay. Could I ask you, is it correct that for the lights we only have about 20 nights of use? Is it in that ballpark?
The resource consent currently states that 20, yes, you're right, it is 20. They are, they're very significant lights though. They are full Sky TV quality lights. If there would be an intention to needs for the number one field for, let's say, more community use, that would need a different lighting arrangement than those very large ones that we've got at the moment.
Okay. All right, I'll move on. Thank you. I know we're short of time. That actually raises other questions, but we'll save that for another day. Can I ask, you were talking about options around. Would it be possible that maybe local rugby clubs decides that perhaps a change of venue is time, for whatever reason, financial, maintenance, whatever? Do you think the stadium, the actual Rotorua Stadium, would be able to handle? Sorry, I don't know how many games they play. I suppose it depends what division they're in the Bay League. But do you think a club would be able to play, say, or one or two clubs would be able to play home and away for a season?
I think we need to get some advice on that. If it was the only use, then certainly. But if we were also thinking of having fields available for large events at certain times, then that might be a bit tricky in terms of windows of availability. You know, impacts on, if we need the field for an international game and it requires a month of preparation, then obviously that would affect a local club use if we were going to do it like that. So and we would also need some turf expertise to understand just how many hours of use the field could cope with without degrading.
Thank you. Do we have that expertise at the moment amongst with the changeover from Invercore to the stadium, or does the stadium have that expertise as part of their staff?
We would contract that in. We do contract in turf expertise every year, and so we would use our current supplier for that.
Okay, thank you. The gym you talked about, is there any potential to open that up for, say, private use as well, or do we need the Bay's agreement with that, or is there any avenues to...
That would be a discussion with the rugby union. The equipment is theirs, the space is ours. So again, that's the partnership we would need to discuss with them.
Right. And forgive me, so this year, you're right, there's one game with the Bay. Thursday night, sorry from memory, but I could be wrong. Last year we had 2 games. Could you tell me, do you know when the last time we had was?
No, I can't tell you. I'm pretty sure there have been seasons we've had 3. And they did particularly well one year and nearly got right through to the finals. We had 3 that year, I think.
Thank you. And on the, say, when we host them for a Steamers game, or, in the Volcanics as well, if it's a nighttime game, who pays for that power use? Who pays the power bill? Is that on us or the Bay as the user?
That is on the Bay as the user.
Right. And do we charge them market rent when they play, like for the actual facility itself, where we'll say if it was a daytime game, for example?
I would have to check on that. I think there has been a combination of both market and discounted, depending on the direction from the other costs associated with the game. So I think that has varied, and I'd need to check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Brien, how many more questions have you
got? Last one for me. We obviously the Rotorua International Stadium. Have we sought out any potential naming rights to try and...
Through the chair, there's a broader piece of sponsorship work that we're doing with Rotorua NZ, which is including the stadium as part of that analysis.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report.
Councillor Wayne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 2 questions from me. The first one just follows on from Councillor O'Brien's question around the roof, but mainly my one is around the sound system. And I guess the costs around, I think we're aware that obviously there's not a permanent one there at the moment. The costs for, I guess, the rentals, and also what would be that cost to to bring it up? Because is that included in the table, or maybe not?
No, it's not included in the future maintenance needs. The sound system was removed 1 or 2 years ago as a result of the fact that the supports holding it up within the stadium were corroded well past their use-by date. we have been able to hire in we have been able to facilitate others hiring in sound systems when needed for large events, because they generally do need something even bigger than what we had anyway. I think, and those costs are passed on to the event organisers who are doing that event.
Thank you. And the second one is just around, so number 5 and number 6 around the decommissioning. That's just decommissioning, isn't it? It's not the demolition of the site. Potentially a demolition of the building and then utilising the domain as a bowl, I guess. So would that be considered under others?
We could take advice on that. I think number 5 was decommission building and consider alternative use of the building site would actually be demolition of the building. And is there some other sort of building that could go there that would fit in with a sporting area? And then, but there's options. Decommissioning the building would still require depreciation type costs, which is part of the significant cost burden at the moment.
Thank you.
Can I add? We've tried to cast the net very wide here. Just want to be clear that there isn't a plan to demolish or deconstruct this building at this stage. That would be a very, very significant decision that obviously would come to council over several stages. And also, let's be clear, demolition of a building is not a capital cost. It's an operational cost, which would then be borne in that year. So it is a very significant operational cost.
Okay, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my question's just been answered.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report, Rob. Just looking at a couple of the opportunities. The gym, my understanding is when that was established, it was for not just rugby, but all athletics of a certain level. Was Sport Bay of Plenty actively promoting that with the athletes that they deal with on a regular basis?
Thank you, Councillor. Aware that Sport Bay of Plenty were doing that they could have been, and I can certainly find out and get back to you on that one.
So that could be an opportunity. And then looking at the lounges, the lounge use is very low. And we've used them for various things in the past. We have a new caterer, I understand, that is now running our facilities for us. Are they utilising that as part of their portfolio when people inquire about certain levels of conference or meeting spaces?
My understanding is yes. I would have to check that with Rotorua NZ.
Okay, thank you. And finally, the home of one code, that interests me. Have we made any approaches to New Zealand Māori rugby regarding the Māori All Blacks? Our goal of making this the heart of Māori sport, obviously, that would be a good feather in the cap.
Historically, we have, not recently. So that would be part of whether we decide from this process to further pursue that.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you for the report, Whānau. I've got a few questions, but just to follow on from Councillor Patterson's one, keeping it to one code, to me, especially when we've just heard that we've got a big build-up now with New Zealand Māori Rugby League, and there was some positive media and television and print recently when the President said that they enjoy coming to Rotorua, and I noticed they have built up, and they're hoping to participate there at the stadium. Are our negotiations still ongoing there, or are they going to stay at Puketawhero Park?
We are talking with Aotearoa New Zealand Māori Rugby League all the time. Their events are growing and growing, like you've noticed. So generally, their very large events are going to that stadium, Westbrook Rayboard area, simply because of the scale of them. but they're still using Puketawhera Park for some of the junior age events and things like that. So those discussions are continually ongoing.
Okay. Question 3, option 3, when I look at that, I thought we want to host something like the Matatiri, which is held every 2 years and then just back for the whole week. So, what are your thoughts on question 3?
Great question. I think what we're presenting here is a range of options that we want to do more work on and bring back to this committee to say which direction, this is the analysis, this is what it's telling us we can get the best numbers on, but then ultimately that's a direction provided by this committee.
With that. Yeah, anyway, and the final question, you mentioned about working in with Rotorua in New Zealand, and we've had new reports recently for events. I'm sure that want to ensure that not only the stadium but any venue in Rotorua is available for things they can bid for. The question I have, are we behind the 8 ball a little bit at the moment with the loss of some experienced staff who've left us, who've been involved in bidding for major events and things like that? Are we okay, or we're going to lose some momentum?
I don't think so, Councillor. From what my recent discussions with Rotorua NZ is that they are very active in the event funding space, and so there are some things in the pipeline that look quite positive. With delivery, we may need to bring some assistance in at times because the people who have left are very experienced deliverers. We do have experience within the current team, and we know that there is experience available should we need it.
Councillor Parker. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Councillor, for the report. Option number 4, the outsourced operations. We mentioned an announcement model. Is it a comparative study to ours, and have you done any work around that yet, or since that's potentially to come? And second part, are there other models such as the Nelson one that we can use to compare us with the one?
The Nelson Stadium is reasonably similar. It doesn't have the tournament space that we have, and that is outsourced to community leisure management, so Great Alcoholic Centre. So it is quite similar. It still hosts large cricket events down in Nelson and things like that, so they still do that. I'm not familiar with any other outsourced models, but I think we carry on exploring that a bit further into.
And it's further to that, how long's the Nelson model been running, do you know?
It's I've been aware of it from CLM for at least 5 years, so it has been going for a while.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Rob, I just had a couple of questions. We had during I think it was the LTP or the annual plan submissions, I think it was Karakura, looking for potentially relocating their club rooms. Is that an opportunity as a possible operating model for a shared club rooms for multi-code sports or something like that? It was something that we had talked about before.
It certainly could be. Any sort of club use of the facility would potentially require some changes to just accessible areas. At the moment, the building is sort of set up, once you're in, you're in. And, you know, there's often duty managers needed for things like that. So there would need to be some work done, potentially not much, but then, you know, we could create a club facility in association with the building itself.
Okay, and then the Sharon Van Gerlich report suggested as part of her recommendations that the stadium be purely a community use facility. Do you see that in one of those models, or is that another option that needs to be put up there? Because we've kind of got a mix of everything in all of those lines apart from 5 and 6.
Yes, so through you, Deputy Worship, we see that as 3, which has no major events, which is fundamentally the difference from what we currently have. So that would be the community only model.
Okay, and just one last question, just following on from Councillor Barker around the outsourced operations. One of the things that we've done is made a strategic decision to only shift the Sir Howard and the Energy Events Centre. Given that there seems to be a lot of discussion at the moment with Rotorua NZ around events and attraction and things like that, is that another potential opportunity, even though we haven't explored that, for that to be outsourced to Rotorua NZ? Or does that not work if we're going with a mixed community use / major events model?
I think when we were given the example around the Nelson Stadium, that could also be considered under that option. So is there another means to which to operate the stadium, which we could consider as ECO for that?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patterson?
Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair. Just one quick question back to you, Rob, with regards to the lights. My understanding, they've been there for a very long time. They're an old form of technology, and that's one of the major costs for anybody wanting to have a nighttime event. They take a significant amount of power to get up to speed, I guess you could say. Whereas you look at the Bay Oval, that's basically turn it on. My understanding that when that happened, I think they needed, just for the bulbs, not the frame, was $100,000 to replace or to install all of those. Do we have any idea what it would cost us to replace that with new technology?
You are right with all those statements about the cost to turn them on and things like that. I'm not aware that we do have a modern technology cost equivalent. That I would see as being part of the work that's coming out of the condition work that the facilities team will be doing, and we'll be able to ask that question as a result of that once we understand what we've got and potentially what's available.
Can we make a note of that so that that happens? That would be great information to have. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson, if I can jump in, my early career did a lot of sports field lighting design, and there's just been an upgrade at Crown Park in Taupo, so we can quite easily get references for the cost of upgrading metal halide lights to LEDs, which is what you're talking about. So we'll do that.
Thank you. I think there's also a lot of other data that needs to come. Obviously, we've seen that in the questions. So just wanting to try and get some way of resolving the possible options. And I think there are 2 that kind of stand out, which Councillor Wang raised. That's around the 5 and 6. So I'm just trying to see if there is any real appetite for those 2 options. If not, then that would leave the others wide open. So, Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have absolutely no appetite at all for those options because I have so many fond memories of watching the Lions there, the Bay of Plenty steamers, the Rivers of Babylon. Who are they, Don? Boney M performed there. I mean, we've all got fantastic memories of the place. But nevertheless, it should be said that it's more than a $2 million hole in the budget every year for ratepayers. And I think that option should be put to the ratepayers so that they can decide whether or not it's justified to throw to whether they would prefer to reduce their rates by the best part of 2%. It would be a sad day if that happened, but it's the tough reality with this is it's a cavernous stadium. And when you get a good crowd there, it still looks like a small crowd, and that's what makes it difficult for teams like the Bay of Plenty Steamers who want to play there. It doesn't look like there's a great crowd there. So this is a really complex problem. that we have with our stadium, and I think we do need to look at all options, as unpalatable as they may be.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. So are there any other suggestions? Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there are way too many questions unanswered for us to make a informed decision here today. I think all options need to be on the table. I personally would see Rotorua NZ being participating in the design of the future. I hear what Councillor Lee is saying, and on top of that, we don't know the facility conditions, and we don't know the cost of repairs and maintenance and any capital required to bring it up to any proposal. I think, personally, I think we're a little bit premature perhaps in bringing this to the council at this moment. There's more work and more questions that need to be answered before we can get a direction.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. I think this was just so that we could get give some direction to the staff around that. So what I'm hearing is that people don't want to necessarily remove any of those options, so that staff should potentially go away and investigate all of those once they've got all of the other information, like the revenue, like the utilisation, like the costs and all the rest of it. Are there other suggestions? Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for you, I just wonder if perhaps we should also look at the possibility of a community trust, because this is obviously a wide-ranging, and even we're not seem to be 100% sure on what community use or community model actually is. That we want something to be community-focused but still available for commercial enterprise. I just wonder perhaps if a community trust model could be perhaps something we look at towards the future.
Okay, so that fit under option 4 is the potential outsource operations, or you want to identify that as a separate community sports?
I suppose what I'd be saying is sort of removing council to some degree out. It wouldn't just be outsourcing the aquatic centre. I'd have a more, shall we say, independent framework in mind, but just putting it out there for now.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Maxwell?
Thank you for your indulgence. And can you tell me, I enviously look at Eden Park. Okay, that's the #1 national stadium of New Zealand, but they have really upped their game and they are having major events. Okay, they get games and that as well, but what can we learn from them? Have we been visiting it and seeing the things they're going from? Not only just the sport of rugby, but anything, any sport, and major shows, and even local community getting the World Cup haka record back, back at Eden Park. Things like that just lights up the place we want here.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wari?
Do you go there though? Yeah. Okay.
Question from Councillor Waru, thank you.
Not so much a question. I concur with Councillor Brown's angle there and his kōrero. I think there's a few more questions need answering. However, I think if we're saying, well, get all the information for all of these options, we've got to be reasonable in terms of the time that's going to take. That's a big job. It's a lot of work, a lot of hours. So I'm for that. But if we're saying that, then we can't expect, at next month's meeting we're going to have all the options. I don't think that's reasonable. So might be time. I'm supportive of getting all our options, even the one that Councillor O'Brien mentioned around the community trust model, perhaps. But that takes time. So if we are down with that, then let's make sure we give the proper time to enable that work to happen.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll bring this discussion to a close. There seems to be sufficient support for all of those options, and I think the other one identified by Councillor O'Brien. So I think we've given enough direction about suggested events, more information that is required. So just on that last one there, if we change that to independent operator via a community sports trust, is that? So we have just a slight change in the wording from the agenda for this resolution, because really what we're asking for is that the staff go away and identify the operating models. So the proposed resolution would be that the committee identifies options of operating models as listed in the table below, which we've now just added one more, for further investigation to explore the future operation for the Rotorua Stadium. Thank you. That's moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Waru. I don't know if we need to have any more discussion on it. It's pretty self-explanatory. So staff, you've been given some clear directions. Okay.
Madam Chair, just the one thing I wanted to make clear was one of the things we need to see, and when we get the information back, is a proper business case to say, this is what it costs us, what kind of model will make it profitable?
Yes, I think that's implicit in our directions. Councillor Patterson. So I'm going to put this resolution, unless there's something.
If I could just make a quick suggestion.
Yes.
Regarding timing, perhaps this is something that could be targeted for the next long-term plan.
Yeah, this will come to the next council, and obviously any investment case will be in the next long-term plan. I think that's what had already been signalled as well, Councillor Lisa. Thank you for raising that. No further questions, no further comments.
Just a further comment. Some of us are all working now for the future for some major events, and if option 3 stays in there, well, we can tell our committee we're wasting our time if they're going to take away major events, because it does take time to get some of these major events.
I think, Councillor Maxwell, what we've done is leave the options wide open, let this team do their work. I think we've given some suggestions around major events and how we can work with Rotorua NZ on that. So I think obviously they'll come back with the options, and that's a future council decision as to whether or not that would be an acceptable model or not. So I'm going to put that motion now. All those in favour, please signal aye. Against? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you, Rob and Alex. Going to have a change now to proposed plan change 8, natural hazards, adoption of a proposal for notification. I've got a mover, Councillor O'Brien, and seconded by Councillor Waru to receive the report. So good morning, Kim and JP. And you've got a brief PowerPoint.
Good morning, councillors. I'll just hand across to Kim, who has a little short presentation. As you're aware, we've tried to step this through with you before, setting out the sort of the key topics. I think Kim will just go back over those, but there's a fairly large attachment for you. Hopefully you've had some time to digest, and any questions I'm sure Kim will be happy to answer.
So yes, I have just a very short presentation, given that it was only just the other day that we gave you an update on this proposed plan change. Next. So just to recap on the proposed scope of the proposal that you have. It doesn't address those. It also doesn't some certain matters, although they are related to natural hazards. It is proposed that they be specifically out of scope, and those are stormwater discharge requirements, the storage of hazardous substances, vegetation disturbance rules, and dam safety. And these are things that do have probably a lot of public interest, a lot of crossover with natural hazards, but it was thought that it wasn't the right time to address these matters. They relate to many other issues as well. It would have drawn out timeframes, and in some instances they're already regulated under other matters. So those have been left out of scope. The drivers for this proposal, one of the key drivers was outdated and new hazard mapping, which is strongly linked to the rules and policies. There's an example of that there with the fault mapping that is GNS. Another is just some inconsistencies and gaps between, say, different zones, different stages of development. And then also underlying is the plan review obligations that apply to council to review its district plan, the Lakes A zone being an older part of the district plan. So yeah, those are the key. Into place before the hearing of the plan change, so it will be part of the context. But if it, assuming it doesn't change much from as it's been provided for consultation, it will not really provide much detailed guidance for the actual content of the policies and rules. It sort of embeds like an approach to think about risk and have rules that reflect the level of risk, which I believe this is what this plan change is all about.
Okay, so we're comfortable that it won't send us in a direction after we've made some decisions. Well, that's what I'm hearing. Go on.
I think it's. I think we're comfortable that it won't send us off track of what we think is has been anticipated already within our plan change. And I suppose coming back to that item number 4, I think for us we just wanted that just to be able to, if there is anything that comes out of that process before we notify the Section 32, that we can update it. So we're just trying to have a bob each way, but we're pretty comfortable that we've got an understanding of what the intent is and that we're reflecting that.
Yeah.
I can also give you an idea of what I think the change would be under that discretion.
I'm comfortable. I know we've got a tight time frame. I'm comfortable with the reply, so thank you. Just one other question. You're aligning with Lakes A zone. It's well over its statutory review. Are we comfortable that we're not going to change Lakes A zone in the near future and potentially change that?
Look, councillors, as you're aware, Lakes A zone is overdue for review, and but again, I think when we prioritised the 3 plan changes earlier this year or late last year about what we thought the most impactful ones we needed to progress, Lakes A zone still sits there as a necessity. I think what we're doing here is actually seeing as it sits as an island of separate rules, particularly around hazards. This is where we do need to come across into the Lakes A zone and get that alignment. So we are, in a way, eating that elephant piece by piece, and the most logical place here is to make sure there's direct alignment for Lakes A zone with the whole district's rules around natural hazards.
Okay, something to think about. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Councillor Wing?
Just a very quick one, and it kind of follows Councillor Brown's question, just around the incorporation of the advice expected from the Bay of Plenty Regional Council around the geothermal system mapping. Do we have a expected time, and also what's the process for that as well? Thank you.
I met with my colleague there late last week, and I am now in a position to inform you that we actually don't expect there will be any changes to what is in the current district plan. We're proposing to complete the Section 32 report and put forward a proposal to retain the current geothermal system boundaries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the Chair, thank you, Kim, for your report. Just one quick query. Could I ask, have we worked with Regional Council on this, or do we work with them, allow them during the submission process?
Yeah, we've worked extensively with them, but we expect that there will still be further work through the submission process.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry. No other questions, councillors. Councillor Wang has indicated that he is happy to move, so I'll just read that out, that the committee approves the changes to the Rotorua District Plan set out in Section 32 Report for Notification, 4 submissions as proposed Plan Change 8, subject to Recommendation 4, and then 3, that the committee adopts the attached report as the assessment of costs, benefits, efficiency and effectiveness required under Section 32 of the Resource Management Act, subject to Recommendation 4, and 4 is the new one, so we've just tried to tidy this up to tighten the delegations, that the committee delegates to the CE to approve the final Section 32 evaluation before notification for submission, subject to minor editorial changes, requirements required to National Direction for Natural Hazards and the geothermal system mapping updates. It's been moved by Councillor Wang. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any discussion on that, Councillor Wang?
Probably no discussion, but just to acknowledge the work that's done by Kim. The TV's blocked. The rest of the team and the detail in this proposed plan change and the changes included in there. So just to thank them for the work that's gone into this, and look forward to the submission process and the hearings. Thank you.
That will be for the next council, I think. Councillor Wang, Councillor Brown is the seconder. Did you wish to say anything?
Nothing at this time. I'll reserve.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Against.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only comment, and I did have a concern when you look at some of the LA fires, some of the feedback that came through, and I know we're not comparing apples and apples here, but one of the concerns was some of the places that allowed development to happen were, forgive me, but almost asking for trouble, like lack of planning around emergency access and exits, getting people out in time, and what I've heard today has allayed most of those fears, so I thank the team for their work on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Brien. Are there any further comments, councillors? If not, it's been moved and seconded. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please signal aye. Aye. Anyone against? Thank you, that is carried. Got the Community Experience Progress Report. We might just take this in parts because I'm going to take a morning break at around 11. So I'll get a mover and a seconder to receive the report. Thanks, Councillor Barker. Seconded, Councillor Lee. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, thank you, that is carried. So, Alex, we've got Julianne, Kellyanne, no, we've got Laurie, we've got Stuart. Oh, we have got Kellyanne, sorry. So, you've got a bit of a presentation, so maybe if we just take the presentation and then we might take the morning break.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, so this format will hopefully now be a little bit familiar for councillors. I will breeze through it nice and quickly because I don't want to get in the way of cups of tea and cups of coffee. This report covers really the last 2-month period from our last report. This time, in addition to covering the library, museum and customer solutions area, we also have the community engagement portfolio included. Active and engaged communities, just as a reminder, went through to INE last week. Just moving on to the main results tables. Library, as you can see, we're sort of indicating a red progress there, largely in relation to kind of the annual targets that were set. The underlying data that's driving that, we are seeing issuing of e-resources continuing to increase, so that's a positive outcome for the library, and we've seen a small gain in physical issues. You may recall last time we'd seen a bit of a dip in that, so that's recovered somewhat. We do think, though, we will probably be under around 2% under the target by year end. April has been the library's busiest month for programs. They saw a 7% jump against the target in that month alone. However, when we forecast out the events happening in May and June, we still think we'll be under about 10% there from the target. Moving on to the museum, I won't labour this too much. There is a more detailed report coming to Council this afternoon. The decision to defer concept design until June has been incorporated into that report, and that will also include some reopening scenarios and subsequent decisions on developed design. We are tracking in terms of exhibition funding at just over $1 million so far of external funding. In terms of the non-LTP measures, Customer Solutions team have processed an additional 10,000 calls over the last 2-month period. So I just want to clarify, when I say calls have increased and then say calls continue to decrease, I mean the calls that we've actually fielded in the last 2 months have gone up by 10,000. But we are still tracking downwards, which just goes to show that the self-service options are really playing in here. We continue to anticipate that as being a trend and to increase when we've got those online portals introduced. Email volume continues to increase as calls decline. Again, that was similar to the report from last time, and that just reflects our shift to electronic customer communications. Process payments, again, we're seeing a reduction there or a downward trend, and that's also as a result of online banking. You may recall last time we'd seen a big jump in rate of resolution from the previous year. We're holding that at 52, but we have set an internal benchmark of 70% as first point of contact, and we're still, we're looking to actively make improvements to be able to get to that target. Museum education, we are down 50% on staffing at the moment with illness. This has resulted in cancellation of some local classes, which has put us behind where we anticipated to be at this stage of the year. The library, the door count continues to track down 6% below same time last year. We believe that's driven by a 20% drop in computer use in April, and then also a reduction in partner-led events as kind of contributing factors to that overall door count. I will note we have done some brief benchmarking overnight to understand where our library performs nationally. Those figures do get updated somewhat, and there will be a more fulsome report on that as we undertake some evaluation work. But there is some positive stories to say how we perform compared to other libraries, and Julianne will be able to answer that in more detail after the break. Oh, sorry. Back one, just in terms of the community engagement work and the community matching fund. Last year we had received 25 applications for funding, and at this time had approved 17. This year we've had 41 applications come in and are still at the 17 rate of approval. This equates to 93,000 of committed funds, so there's 7,000 still to be committed through until the end of the financial year. What might be of interest is that leverages around 315,000 of in-kind contribution, our investment of 100,000. Challenges and risks. So we had started to flag this with committee last reporting period, that we were looking into an investigation around some of those contributing factors for the library statistics. So that's planned in this month, and we look to have some of those early outcomes for you in our next report, progress report. That will look at, we'll aim to look at consumer preferences through that work, the timing and marketing effectiveness of our programs, as well as an analysis around participation data that we collect as well. We have been alerted to the fact that Health New Zealand Te Whatu Ora has made cuts to infant, child and mental health services in April, and that's related to challenges with recruiting psychiatrists to fill vacancies. At this stage, the services in the library continue, so they haven't been affected, but if that does change, we will make sure we let you know. Customer Solutions are entering their busy period, continuing to experience challenges in recruitment, which we covered off in more detail. We are constantly looking for staff to come on, but that does still have a flow-on effect around training, etc. But the team are all hands on deck at the moment. I know Laurie personally is often on the front desk as well, filling in for shortfalls. We are encouraging customers where possible to complete transactions online, and the team are also looking at new ways of handling face-to-face customers through streamlining some of our booking systems. In terms of the museum exhibition, the staffing shortages, our approach at this stage is again to utilise museum staff from other teams to fill in where possible. But we have had to cancel 3 classes so far due to that 50% reduction in staffing. We are looking at further options of how we might be able to mitigate that. And then a complete update on the museum exhibition will be coming up later today as well. Our forward focus, driving for improvements across the customer experience portfolio. We've mentioned the review of the library programs and services. I think an interesting piece, we've got a really strong focus on youth, and really that's related to, we've got a very high demographic in terms of youth. So we have around 28% of youth in the age of 5 to 24 bracket, and that's actually our largest demographic across our population for the district. So that's driven, I guess, a focus on youth and youth programs, and we've right across a number of different teams. So we have the Youth Council, they're gearing up to implement their youth engagement strategy. The library has launched a digital pilot program, and the Museum Youth Group also organised and ran a cultural event at the end of May, which you may have seen or attended. We do have some proactive work underway across the museum team in terms of updating the loans policy, and that's really just to make sure we're applying best practice to our loaned material and future offers of material. The initial reach out to the B Company whānau on Anzac Day saw us get a response of over 800 surveys, and that's provided the museum with additional information around the B Company men and their whānau, along with 200 extra photos of B Company soldiers. So the museum attended and supported the 28th Māori Battalion Trust's AGM earlier in the month, on the 24th of May, back in May, at Whakarewarewa, and we had over 100 B Company whānau attend that as well. The purpose of the AGM was to establish a new entity that's mandated to take care of those B Company soldiers and approvals for exhibitions and access to taonga. And the library will be launching the Great Te Arawa Stories website in June, as well as a refreshed website later in July. So that's our forward plan. And that's the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Alex. I'm going to take the morning break now, and we'll come back at 11:10, and then we'll take questions, I think, in order of each of the areas, just to make it easier for staff to answer the questions. Morning, Your Worship. We're just going to take a 15-minute break, and we'll be back at 11:10. So we'll take these one at a time. So welcome, Stuart. I don't know if you have any preliminary comments to make, but Alex has probably covered it off in the presentation. We've also got the museum coming this afternoon at the council meeting regarding the exhibition. So, councillors, any questions to Stuart? You've seen the challenges and opportunities for the museum. So, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, thank you again for your report. Page 37 of our agenda, museum exhibition funding, under comments it says 661,700 of external funding is at risk, with 181,700 conditional on council matching this amount to progress.
Councillor Patterson will take that this afternoon. That's a council paper that's coming later, so we'll leave that question for later.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions around the museum exhibition? No, they don't appear to be. Well, Stuart, thank you very much. That was easy for you. We will see you next afternoon.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I thought we were going to take museum exhibition questions this afternoon. What are we doing? Which is it?
No, so you can ask, sorry, Stuart, we would have taken questions around the museum, but around that particular topic, we have a paper this afternoon for that discussion around the exhibition.
Okay. Cool.
So if there are other questions about the museum, Stuart's still on the hallway, but otherwise we'll save them now for the afternoon, given that he's left. Welcome, Julianne. So, library questions. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. The library door count, I think, has gone down, if I remember from before the break. I was wondering whether Sunday, the closure of the library on Sundays, might have anything to do with that, and whether you had any feedback about the merits of the library being closed on Sundays or not.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Lee. Yes, so this financial year is the first full year of us closing on a Sunday. So we will be doing an assessment of that against the previous year's data to see how that has impacted our overall door count. That will be part of the assessment that we do. We have not had any feedback directly to us from customers. We've just undertaken a survey, so we may get some responses through the survey, but we haven't got that information yet. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Juliet. I wanted to ask the question, have we got problems at the moment trying to recruit psychiatrists for the Health New Zealand Rotorua?
I'm not sure if that's a question for Julianne.
Well, it's only a quick, brief question.
I think Alex had mentioned that's a Te Whatu Ora issue. So.
Rotorua.
Are there other questions to Julianne around library services? Councillor Brown?
Just a real quick one. I think, just a comment first, I think it would be beneficial for us to see a longer trend information in 2 years. I think if it's a blip, it's easy to see. I'm looking forward to seeing the data against the other libraries where there's a national trend, and I think potentially if there is a longer trend downwards, it raises a strategic question, but we'll see that at the next presentation. Is that right?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Brown. So we, Public Libraries New Zealand, our affiliated body, gathers statistics from all of the libraries around New Zealand. They gather that information in August, September, and it's made available early in the new calendar year. So we won't have the data for this financial year until probably about March or April. However, we have got data going back several years that we can compare with to identify if there was a bit of a blip. In my short time at the library, I feel like last year was a very good year. But yes, we can compare previous year data as well.
Any other questions? Is that perhaps an international trend as well, Julianne, that maybe people are spending more time, watching Netflix as opposed to reading books, or?
Yes, there's a few things that we can pick up from the data already. Obviously, it's just a surface look. We need to look at things a little bit more in depth, but the trend at the moment seems to be that there's a high demand on libraries as community hubs. So whilst books and reading and literature is still very popular, the focus is a lot on e-materials, and that is a trend, is seeing growth. There's also a significant growth in the use of other library services, so things like programs, events and activities, and learning programs through libraries.
Okay, thank you. Alex, we don't have any of those other measures. Are these the only two LTP ones for the library then?
Correct, yeah, they're the ones in the LTP. There is a lot of information that sits in behind that, and one of the things I was interested to talk with Julianne with afterwards is do we start to extract some of that in our sort of non-LTP measures to give a little bit more visibility to councillors around that?
I think that might be helpful given Councillor Brown's comments around, what's the strategic direction in terms of the future of libraries and the amount of investment that we currently put into them. So some more of that data would be useful for councils, I think. Any other questions for Julianne around libraries? Oh, Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really a bouquet. I've heard some really good feedback on the PLNZ conference that was held recently, a couple of months ago. And it made me feel good. I heard it out from out of town. I was in Gisborne and Wellington, and people came to our conference. So it's a bouquet for the PLNZ, hosted by our people. Well done, Julia.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Thank you very much, Julianne. There don't appear to be any further questions. Moving along now, it's Laurie's turn in the hot seat. Welcome, Laurie. Questions? I've got one. Will you take an AP for a dog registration? Because in the past people were told they had to pay it in full or go away and save up their $5 and then come back when they had the whole amount.
An automatic payment we will take, but not a part payment. So it would still have to be that full payment. So we can do internet banking. Sorry.
So you can't set up a direct debit or an AP for a dog registration, help people budget more easily for these sorts of things? So I think that was an issue that was raised last time when we had a significant number of prosecutions, was that people wanted the opportunity to pay it off bit by bit but couldn't, and so then of course when they got the big bill they didn't have the ability to pay it all in one hit.
I believe that is being looked into other ways of making payment, and that will be looked into by the animal control team in regulatory.
Okay, thank you. Karen? Councillor Barker, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noted that on page 39 you mentioned online or booking system for rates rebates to make the appointments for people rather than doing it manually, and that seems to have been successful. Are you looking to do that more widely with other applications using online systems to streamline your processes?
Yes, we are. We're looking to further that into the booking system for our alcohol applications, and that's something that I'm working with Chris in regulatory to look into streamlining that booking service also.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Wadu?
Just a quick question around the uptake of the, I suppose I'm going to call it the kaumatua rate that the council offer. What is the uptake on that? Can you?
Are you talking about
for the pensioners and things like that who get a special rate?
Are you talking about the rates rebate?
Yes. I don't know what you call it. I'm just calling it a kaumatua rate, but.
A rates rebate, that is something that we help facilitate through DIA, and it is a rebate on low-income users. So that will impact on anybody that's on a low income as well as being a pensioner. But there is new rules that are coming out through the government through DIA.
Oh, okay, so I might have jumped the gun a bit. I thought the rules were already in place there. But actually I was asking, what, in terms of numbers, how many people actually are taking that opportunity to take advantage of that policy?
We've had around just over 2,000 rates rebates per year that we help apply a rebate to their rates account.
And just another little question on the end there, sorry. And how do we, suppose, advertise that sort of, these, not just that, but, you know, all the things that our community might be entitled to? How do we get that word out?
At the moment, it's on your instalments that are received for your rates. That states that you may be eligible for a rates rebate. We also, anybody that has applied for a rates rebate, we will send out a letter advising that the booking system will be up and available for them to apply or have a look to see if they qualify for a rebate.
Thank you very much, Kia ora.
No other questions? Councillor Lee.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if the Tarawera residents, for example, and Rotorua residents have been informed of this service. It might be of benefit to some of them to be aware that this is a possibility.
Latest newsletter or information that went out to them, so the answer is yes.
Excellent. So, excuse my ignorance, does the DIA, Department of Internal Affairs, end up paying their rates or part of their rates for them? Is that how it works?
Yes, there's I think it's, this year will be $805 that will be eligible to be reimbursed by DIA.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, thank you very much, Laurie, for coming in. And Juliet, Kellyanne. Community engagement. Any questions to Kellyanne? Councillor Barker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's actually probably more a comment, if that's okay. I just wanted to acknowledge on page 39 that the community engagement team have engaged directly with over 600 community members through a range of community events and also in response to community demand. And I just want to acknowledge the work that your team has done with the rural communities, in particular some of the work done with the Mamaku community as well. So I just wanted to say thank you very much to your team. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you for that. The questions? Councillor Maxwell?
Try and make it a question, but really it's a bouquet again because they've been running the youth program, and last week we had 2 or 3 of the youth came along to the Ngāti Whakaue meeting, and they were, it was the pūkenga for the Te Arawa Wharetaonga, and they were tremendous. They were really big helpful. Not only did they help bring the average age down for all of us, but the question is, thank them all. Thank them all for their contribution.
Thank you.
On the grants that have been given out and
Yes, we can finish a fuller report for the financial year. Yep.
I think it'd be good just to know where that funding's been allocated and the additional benefit that I think Alex mentioned as the spin-off or as the requirement for that matching fund.
I'll just check with the team around when the reports will be due in for the reports, so it might not quite be July, but it will come.
Yeah, our next reporting period I think will be August. Yeah,
next meeting. Okay, thank you. Councillor Waru?
Tēnā koe te tiamana, tēnā koe Kelly. Ai te whanaunga, just wanted to ask you about the accessibility for policy. It's been adopted, kapai, and there's a plan to sort of implement it. I was wondering if you could share, maybe are there examples of how this will be implemented in sort of planning or something like that?
Great question. Thank you for the question. So it's not been lost on us, neither on our community, neither on our staff, that a policy is not worth much without any deliberate action to implement it. Our team have been working up a plan that will prepare us for the next LTP. Education and socialisation throughout the organisation about what community have fed back to us through the process of developing the policy, and what that, how we take that now and make best use of it and start to build plans. There'll be a stock take that we will be initiating within the next quarter. So we'll be working alongside teams to kind of introduce the tool, and for everybody to take a little bit of a look at what we're already doing. And we already know that there's already some really great examples throughout the organisation of what people are doing really well. And then it's also identifying, okay, so if our community have told us that these things haven't been working so well, what plans do we need to put in place to start to improve on those things? So that's the process for the next year or so.
Thank you. And just another question to add on, the time frame in which you're talking about long-term plan stuff and all that. Where do you think this will land, or when will it be fully integrated into all our processes?
It'll be incremental. The direction from Council around the accessibility policy was that we were going to develop a policy that we could operationalise, to the extent that we could operationalise it without any additional funding outside of a normal LTP cycle. So the work that we're doing now is really around understanding what we're doing, understanding what our community have told us, and starting to make plans, and where there are opportunities to continue to renew things better, then that's within budget. That will happen, and it'll be informed by some of the work we've done already. My team will assist for the next 12 months the business to develop their own plans, to develop some expertise in how they're going to implement those plans, and work alongside them if they're ready to do some stuff now. We can obviously advise, but there will be some subject matter expertise that will need to be kind of different departments will need to sort of bring in so that they can advise specific to those areas, and they will need to plan for their budgets around that.
Thank you.
Just further to that, Councillor, we will use our report to update on implementation activities as they occur.
Tēnā koe, Alex.
No other questions. Thank you very much, Kellyanne, for coming in too. Thank you very much, Alex, as well. Thank you, councillors. That brings to a close the community experience reporting for this meeting. Move now back to JP and Mihi, which is the Community Safety Progress Report. I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report. Thank you, Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, that is carried. Councillors, you will also just remember that this morning I indicated to you that there will be a verbal update around the homelessness in the CBD, and so could you please reserve any questions relating to that item until we are in confidential. There may be some things that JP can refer to in public, but for now we will take that in confidential. So there are other matters that are raised in the report, so I'll leave it to JP and Mihi to just overview the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I might just throw across to Mihi at some point, but there was a couple of highlights I thought was worth just traversing. The first is just around, we've given you a bit more information about where we're up to on the CCTV camera network. So obviously NZTA have been transitioning their camera network themselves, and that's left us in a catch-up phase where we're just making sure that we're also updating our own cameras on those poles at the various locations, so that's really important for us. The other one too, which is, we talk about how effective the camera network is, but equally it has its limitations, so we work closely with the operational team within Parks and Reserves, and we've included a couple of photos of some of the challenges we have with using our network effectively, which is trees grow and trees obscure cameras in certain directions. So constantly we're sort of making sure we're getting the maximum coverage from our camera network to make sure it's effective. But again, that requires us to work effectively with some of those other departments. Probably the other piece too, and I'll just go more slowly, we've had the increasing numbers of homelessness and homeless people within the CBD. Mihi and the inner city team have been working really carefully to make sure we're talking to all the support agencies across the city. And really trying to make sure we're communicating effectively about sort of the challenges that the support or the help being provided to homeless people is creating in some areas, and probably we've seen that amplified in recent weeks around Amahia Street. So a real challenge there in numbers and in the style of behaviour created there, leading to a number of concerns around safety, intimidation and obviously blocking of the footpath, which was a real concern. So we've been doing the normal approach that Mihi and the team do, which is the educate and encourage, and really trying to make sure we're taking all the steps we can to encourage people to consider alternative options and seeking help around accommodation. So that's been a fairly heavy campaign over the last few weeks. But it obviously resulted in very little uptake from and changes in behaviour. So maybe I'll just leave Mihi if she wants to add anything to that. Other than that, if she's got nothing else to add, we're just happy to answer off any questions around the report.
Okay, questions, Councillor Waru?
Tēnā koe, te tiamana, tēnā kōrua, JP, Mihi, tēnā kōrua. Just wanted to ask about, because I've seen these, the bikes going around. How is that working? Is it just curious to, I don't know, expand on it a bit more?
Kia ora. The e-bikes are working well. Obviously, they use them when they can. It's weather dependent. What our safeguardians do is they do a bit of gas, handheld gas detecting out in the areas which aren't really accessible. So those e-bikes are used to get into those areas out the back there to do some gas detecting to remove people that are experiencing homelessness in those areas because they're dangerous with the gas level detection. So they're proving very valuable in respect of getting into those areas that require, it's further out and takes a long time to walk, but they can take their bikes in those areas.
Great, thank you.
Probably just adding to it, we've reported previously, isn't it, that we had a very narrow focus on the inner city, and we talked about as the plan sort of rolls out, and we've only been in operation since that, I think it was August 2023, really a view that we would start expanding the sphere of influence, and so the e-bikes give the team a chance to get into Sanatorium, Government Gardens, Cueto Park, and out also into Glenholm and Fenton Park. There was also a view that subsequent to this we'll be working with our mobile service to start heading out to some of the suburban centres, but again it's that kind of incremental movement as we get on top of issues within one particular area, we can expand out.
Thank you, JP. And just my last question is around our CCTV cameras. How often are we collaborating with regards to the cameras with the police? How often is that happening?
every day, just about every minute. We've got our radios. We are in constant communication with our police. The police comms services down in the South Island in Christchurch. We've just recently managed through VGrid to share, so they get to see our screens. There's 4 screens they get to share, and so in Christchurch they can see things happening in real time. I was in the CCTV room the other day watching it in real time, where we had a young man walking around our streets with a replica gun, and immediately our monitor made Southern Comms aware. They got that screen and they could see it in real time, so alerted Southern Comms to that. So that makes our deployment model even stronger when we have those links.
I think that's brilliant. It's great, and long may it rain, and also just thank you, Mihi, you and the team. I've seen a few things in town where they've been de-escalated pretty quickly, and in a nice, manner, and it seems to be the way. I've seen some security guards and other things approaching things a little bit differently. One or two, maybe it's the same person, but just a big shout out to your team. Kia ora.
It's the other piece too, and it's often not seen as being an important part of their role is the evidential and review material. So sometimes we're asked to review footage, so compile some evidence or provide the police with additional information. That's a significant time investment, and but obviously it's part of the partnership we have with the police to make sure we help them be as effective as they can, and certainly they help us look after our community.
And just further to that, you'll see in the progress report that we record arrests that we see that police are doing, but we do not have records from police of the arrests post-review. So our monitors in there are dealing with offences that are very low level, right to homicide. So they're reviewing evidence for homicides, they're reviewing evidence for fatal car crashes, they're reviewing evidence for, sexual predators around. So that we do not have those stats from the police to say, as a result of the reviews provided by our monitors, X amount of arrests have taken place.
So the number could well be a lot bigger. Oh boy, thank you.
I was going to take a question from Her Worship, because I'm aware that she has some time constraints, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Wang. So, Your Worship, you had a question or a comment to make?
Thank you so much. I've recently had a really productive meeting in which JP and Mihi both joined with our area commander, but also our public service and government agencies, and just have a question regarding the community safety hub. First of all, how is that going? Are we finding that the stakeholders that we're involving are not only relevant, but also it's assisting them to reduce crime? And is there a possibility for us to broaden the relationships that we have to include, in particular, Te Whatuora, the Ministry of Health, and also potentially the Ministry of Education? And this is on the back of, I know it was widely circulated in the media, where we had 2 young girls that slashed tyres in our community. I think there's both a role of Ministry of Education, and then in times when our in-city guardians have gone around with nurses to help those who are in need on our streets, that was a good connection with the Ministry of Health. So in order to continue to reduce community safety, but from a preventative perspective, is there a way to utilise the community safety hub and include a more broader range of services that are currently available in our community? Thank you.
We certainly have space in the hub. As I said, this is a phased approach, and we're open to innovation. We're open to these things. The hub, every Tuesday, there's intel briefings where we have stakeholders come and discuss activities that are occurring in the CBD. I welcome any of you to attend if you wish to come. It's held every Tuesday. Just come and see me. So, yeah, there are some, you're 100% correct around Te Whata Ora, someone from education. It could flourish if we had the right people in there.
Just following up on those comments from Mihi, and I think the importance of Her Worship coordinating the public service meeting. There's a lot of agencies who work neatly within their own boundaries, but the complex issues we're dealing with just highlight how there needs to be a lot more discussion between agencies, and certainly staying within our own scope is important as well, but we certainly have this opportunity to effectively coordinate those other agencies to work better collaboratively together, and bring a bit more focus of services to what are a lot of complex issues in our community.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Wagner?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the report. I just had a question around the loss of access. So obviously that happened a little while ago to the NZTA cameras, where they discontinued the council's access to their 6 cameras, focusing on the crime corridors. So you say that the workers scheduled to reinstate RLC access to the 6 locations. Is that to get access back to those cameras, or are we putting in our own?
We've ended up in a situation where we've got our own cameras, Councillor. NZTA was upgrading their own cameras, and they actually operated on a different system to us. So it's kind of prompted us to go, NZTA's material was moved to their own management regime, but in effect we've come through now and sort of put in our own cameras, which do integrate better with our own network. So this has actually been sort of catalysed a set of improvements on what's some really important camera locations.
Thank you. Next one's also on the CCTV network that you mentioned here, that some of the CCTV network in the CBD is facing disruptions due to the tree growth, which also interferes with the the wireless communication, but also obstruction due to the tree growth as well. So you're having the discussions with the Open Spaces team. Can you just update us a little bit about how that's going? I presume in winter is probably a bit better. But
yeah, there's some challenges for the parks team just to get around. Obviously, they have a huge number of trees. So what we're trying to make sure that we do is we're really clear about where we see a problem, and making sure we're providing some information, and we had a photo in the report just highlighting where a particular footpath is being obscured and the kind of level we would need it pruned to be effective. Obviously there's some discussions there that have to occur around health of trees, because you can't give them all a severe haircut. And so we just need to make sure we prioritise that into their work program. So we have some that are higher priority than others, and we'll just systematically work through with the team as they've got availability.
Thank you. Finally, just around the appointment of the inner city lead back in February. So obviously a lot of the work that's happened is building the relationships with the inner city businesses and contributing to the vibrancy and the compliance initiatives. Does that also have a focus? Does this role also have a focus on the community safety aspect, or is it just mainly focused on that, on the vibrancy in the business sector?
Thank you, Councillor. No, it's also integrated into community safety. As far as I see, a symbiotic relationship. The inner city lead's very proactive around community safety as well. With those businesses, they've been down with the police to help them around community safety and give them some tips around how to protect their property. Just a little bit more business resilience, I guess, and understanding around how they can make themselves safe and their employees safe.
I think there's another aspect, which is safety in its broadest sense. Her Worship and Deputy Mayor had a meeting with a number of inner city businesses last week, and a number of people then spoke to things like slip hazards, so the need to have further street cleaning in particular areas where moss had grown on streets. So our inner city lead can pick up on that and work closely with the maintenance team in the city to make sure those areas are cleaned, and what is a slip risk is removed from a particular area. So it's a lot of minor things as well in that safety space. They'll also be working as a warranted officer around breaches around bylaws, and one of the concerns we've got currently is the maintenance and standards around some of the verandas. So we're trying to work with building owners about improving the outcomes in those. So we've got leaks which are causing slip hazards on footpaths or are simply dangerous. And so we're working through with that lead into other parts of the organisation to make sure that we're contacting those building owners.
Okay. I've got my questions out of order, so I think I had Councillor Lee next, but mine differs from Greg, but I'll take Councillor Lee and then I'll come to this side.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question on homelessness, but it's strictly out of the report here. I don't think there'll be, if that's all right with you. I don't think we're going to travel into...
Okay, well, I'll let JP, if you put the question, if it traverses over into the area that I want to cover off later on, we'll take the question. JP can answer it then.
So in the report here on page 46, it says, JP, homelessness has become increasingly visible in the CBD, driven by factors such as the closure of emergency housing facilities and prevailing economic pressures. I think we've been previously advised that a lot of these people choose to be homeless and decline emergency housing for various reasons. Is that correct? And can you remind me what those reasons would be?
Councillor, I'll start with a couple of things. We've got mobility issues. So obviously we have a number of homeless people who choose to live in this way, and they do move around. So I think we've previously told you that we have done some work in Sanatorium Reserve, Government Gardens and in Cuero Park, and our former site on Tenai Road. So it actually creates a movement of people. So we address an issue in one particular location and people move around. And that has driven a number of people towards the CBD. And I think we are seeing, and it's been reported in other centres, about the impact of changes in access to emergency housing creating certain behaviours. That is a proportion. I don't know how much, but it has an influence. And probably the last piece, and therefore I'm not speaking out of line, is it's even been reported in the media with interviews with various people who are on the street, talking about their own choices and about not wanting to be constrained by the rules or the requirements around a particular housing option, and therefore preferring to be on the street. So there is a choice involved in here, and I think this is why it highlights the complexity of dealing with many of the issues that people have and the choices they're making. So the need for that wider set of social services and government agencies to be aligned. So yes, Council, a number of factors come together, but there is a choice element in there where the social services have to be aligned.
Do you happen to know whether these people receive a benefit, or are they required to have a physical fixed address in order to receive that?
Council, I think that's one of the challenges. The meeting that Her Worship convened included MSD, and so you're correct, sometimes people are attracting different benefits. They may need a mailbox or an address to use, clearly, and I think that's one of the challenges and one of the conversations that needs to occur.
I think to add on to what JP has said also, not all of those that are experiencing homelessness in the CBD are not engaging. It's what's available to them. So there's a bit of a priority. So obviously families with children first, and what you'll find is the single male or single female will be sort of lesser on the priority list. But what I can say is, anecdotally, through my team, is we've probably got about 12 to 15 that are the ones that are not engaging. From what we've seen, it's very fluid, it fluctuates. At times we have 40 that actually are homeless that we've identified, but there are those within those 40 that want to engage and have sought help.
So are some of these people preferring not to spend money on accommodation and prefer to spend their benefit money on something else? Is that the
Councillor Lee,
nature
I'm
of
not
it?
sure it's appropriate for the staff to answer someone's personal
It's
choice.
a general question, Madam Chair.
I think it's an interesting observation, but we'll move on.
I have another question, if I may. Just a quick one. Just concerns back to the CCTV network. Could you just remind me how unique this is that Rotorua Council does this? How many other councils are doing CCTV to the extent that we are?
Councillor, I don't think we're unique in having CCTV cameras. So most local authorities have services around this, whether they've outsourced it or insourced it. I think probably the difference we have is the scale we've applied to the team to make sure we've got good coverage available. So that was part of our strategy. So we're probably an outlier on the scale of focus around making sure our network's effective and that we have the staffing available to ensure that it's a really effective tool.
And what's our budget for this for a year?
Council, I can't, off the top of my head, give you a breakdown of that individual part of the budget, but again, we could come back to with more information on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, thank you for your report. Yet again, very detailed, and just carrying on the CCTV discussion. Puketā Federal Park, great to see that that's coming along. What consultation was done with the people who utilise that facility to give you suggestion of where it should go?
That belongs to another team. That doesn't involve my team. But in the progress report, you will see there has been a team created which includes the police, Parks and Recs, information solutions, etc., to make decisions around where these cameras are placed. But that's certainly in the Parks and Recs arena.
Thank you, and no doubt they would have realised that the new toilets that we've just spent a lot of money and the graffiti that's been going on, and spoke to Tato Pōnamu, and all good. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through the Chair. Thank you, Mihi, Morena. I just have a query for yourself and JP and say, I appreciate, this council's given direction about CCTV previously. I do have a question, though, about rather than investing in CT or CCTV and replacements forever and a day, what about drone technology? Because I hear, like I've been at meetings, open public meetings, where the police have talked about they don't chase because they don't want to cause a fatality, which I totally understand. Don't know if I support it, but I understand it. And I think to myself, well, if we can't chase these people, let's just find out where these spikes are going, relay that information, and it's mobile, it's transportable. I appreciate there's rules around the flight path airshed and all that. But wouldn't that make a far better, more mobile solution than putting cameras everywhere which can be shot out, or, if the trees grow a little bit wild, we can't see?
That'd be really cool, Councillor. I think it's one of these things that we're going to have to keep aware of as we go forward. So I don't think we're probably quite ready for that kind of conversation at the moment for mobile. We are being challenged to provide a better oversight of some of our geothermal areas. So areas like Government Gardens and Sanatorium Reserve, where people disappear off into camping in those areas. It's very difficult to find where people have camped, and something like availability of a static drone, to go up and just sort of have a look at those kind of areas is actually really helpful and takes some effort out of the staff. So in those kind of places where we're looking at a static area potentially for a purpose, but again, I think it's a good challenge for us to be aware of the technology opportunities moving forward.
Thank you. I'm glad that we are looking, because I don't really see the point of putting tens of thousands of dollars into a static camera somewhere when there's technology for the last 10 years sitting there that provides us with a much more mobile solution, but I'll leave it in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. And before my question, thanks to the Rotorua Trust, who've over many, many years now paid for those CCTV cameras. So that's been pleasing. I like them. The question I got is, have or any of our guardians, me and JP, called into any court cases to give evidence at all? And they would need the CCTV cameras.
Our Safe City Guardians have not yet given evidence in court that I'm aware of. However, they do provide statements to police. Generally speaking, the court, like the prosecutors, would ask for a Section 9, which means that the evidence is read in court, so they're not actually having to be there. But to date, no one has had to give viva voce evidence, which is verbally standing in front of a judge.
Thank you. Often when we leave council here, I drive up the street there, and a lot of our guardians are out there. Doesn't seem to be the problem we had where the buses and people gather there by the library. The problems that we had in the past is much, much better now, and they're also, our guardians are ambassadors. I like the way they talk to our people and all that. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good segue from Councillor Maxwell on what I was thinking about. And it goes with the library as a longer-term data set to demonstrate the effectiveness of all of this investment. And I can't criticise anything that we're doing currently. I think it's a good move, and I know the Mayor has pushed it. I think we're all seeing the benefit of that. But when, as part of the Commissioner hearings around emergency housing, I know that the police produced heat maps, crime heat maps, that made it very clear to see the differences in over a time period. I just wonder whether we can really analyse or have a think about what we're using as a success measure around this investment, and what can the police produce to demonstrate the success of what we're doing, or not.
Thank you, Councillor. I recently had a meeting with District Headquarters Intelligence Section, who produce such data. I've had a look at the report that they're going to supply to us quarterly, and that includes a heat map. Thank you.
Well,
I think
will we get a look at that?
We'll report that some of that data in. So previously when we've reported the reduction in crime stats, it's been off those kind of reports, Councillor. So we just need to get into a mode of making sure we've got the right kind of consistency in presentation for you to provide that information in. But that's our core metric, is reductions in crime, and that's been a really important focus for us. I think the other piece that is really also important, which we can't undervalue, is the perception. Sure. So there's ongoing work we need to do to build confidence in our retailers and our businesses in town. We've got absolute metrics on crime statistics, but perception is critical as well, so we've got to focus in there. And equally, the confidence and perception of our community. So one should follow the other, and as we keep reporting the positive impacts we're having on actual crime, hopefully that perception improves, but a part of that is also communication and understanding and regular visits and understanding how to access the support that the team provides. So the two things go hand in hand, and neither can be neglected.
Okay, agree with that 100%, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. JP, I just had one question that came out of the meeting with the businesses that the Mayor and I attended on Friday, and it's around the SIPTED, and in particular, I know you and I had had a discussion about removal of some of the seats, but also the need to still provide seating for perhaps elderly people or other people that are using the CBD that may want to sit down, but maybe in areas where there are people congregating. And I think also some of the planter boxes were a concern, as well as more frequent street cleaning, not just the slips, but just having the presence of more eyes and visibility, walking the streets, doing different things like that would also be of use. So just a comment, doesn't need a question. So I think that will bring us to the end of the community safety report, councillors. So thank you very much, JP and Mihi. Going to move into public excluded now. We do have the confidential minutes as well as the homelessness update. So we will move into confidential to protect the withholding of information as necessary to protect information, which is subject to an obligation of confidence, and also to avoid any damage to the public interest. So can I have a mover and seconder to move into public excluded? Thank you, Councillor Wing. Thank you, Councillor Waru. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, thank you, that is carried. We'll invite JP